to Mapping the College Audition. I'm your host, Charlie Murphy, director of MTCA. That's Musical Theater College Auditions. Check us out at mtca.com. And today we've got Joel Ferrell from Southern Methodist University, otherwise known as SMU. For our newer listeners, this is another one of our college deep dive episodes where we explore the landscape of the college theater world and try to demystify this daunting audition process. And this is one we've been excited about for a while because SMU has been a well-known acting program, and they're now adding in this musical theater element. It's been in the works for a while now. You may have heard of it coming. So this is a good episode for both our acting interested folks to get to know SMU a bit, and especially for those musical theaters folks to understand this new program, as well as all the people in between. And, as far as those people in between, I did a little series of Instagram videos for our acting majors, or the people who are interested at least somewhat in those non-MT programs, just trying to give a little window into how that process can be different. And it's always a bit tricky. My first video, I talked about just like what the categories of people are, because there are all these different categories of folks who, they aren't sure how much musical theater maybe they want. Maybe they are mostly focused on acting programs, but they like the idea of some singing. Maybe they want an MT degree for sure, but they like the idea of doing it without dance. So maybe they'd be a singer actor, right? There's all kinds of different interests there. But for all of you, and really for all of you listeners, this can be a great episode wherever you fit on that spectrum, as well as just our traditional musical theater focused students who are going to be checking out a new program within an already established school. It's sort of like when USC added musical theater a few years back, right? After already being a well-known commodity in the acting world, or Oberlin with music, right? It's definitely an advantage already having a positive reputation in that adjacent field. And speaking of Oberlin, just letting you all know that our next college episode, so 2 weeks from now, is officially going to be that Baldwin Wallace interview that we promised you, their Act 2 episode with Jennifer Hemphill. We originally planned it to open this season. I know many of you are dying to hear that one, partially because they're one of the schools that's going to be part of our private audition weekend this December, and partially just because there's interest in the update on Baldwin Wallace. I will say for all of our private audition schools that are part of that weekend, we're going to be doing updates for any of them that have changed their heads or in any way need an Act 2 update. We'll be doing that. We've already begun scheduling those interviews as well. So just letting you know, those are coming. I thank you for your patience, but I know many of you are eagerly awaiting a few of these episodes, and you don't hesitate to let me know, which also, I don't mind getting the feedback, mailbag at Mapping the College Audition. Let us know. And as I mention those private auditions, just make sure you're all staying tuned to your inbox for information. It is coming when you talk about MTCA's private auditions. Again, those warnings of when signups will be released, you'll get those in advance. But just knowing those individual private audition days especially will fill up quickly. There are limited spots there. The weekend in December is already available. That will also fill up, but especially those limited spots in January and February. Make sure you're paying attention to your inboxes and jumping in right away if you know you want to participate. As far as all of you, it was an awesome September of participation with those mocks. I loved seeing so many MTCA faces there, some of whom I saw over the summer and then some of whom I was seeing for the first time. A few of you even got to meet my daughter last weekend as she swung by in the afternoon. That was kind of special at this mock. And I'm going to see a lot of you I know at Pittsburgh Unified this weekend or virtually next weekend. What a time it is. I'm really looking forward to that. And please come up and say hi, right? I always say I love when people come up and say hi, whether you're an MTCA student or not. If you want to come up and say hi, if you listen to the pod, I always love putting a face to a name if I know it, as an MTCA student. And if not, it's always nice to hear from you guys. So please come in with that feedback. Tell me which episodes you're waiting, all those things. As far as POA itself, I'll be hosting a few panels. I'll be teaching some classes. I'm also going to try to get a live pod recording for the faculty panel on Saturday evening. Now that I've announced it to you, it definitely won't happen successfully, but let's hope that it does. Assuming everything goes well, technically with recording, we're going to try to video it. We're going to try to get the audio. I'll be sharing that with all of you pod listeners. Whether you're part of that weekend or not, you'll feel like you were there a little bit. So to all of you families out there, wherever you are in your process, keep locking in. October is a tough month. I know many of you are in pre-screen filming mode as we speak. You're finishing applications. Really looking forward to what these next few months are going to be in your process. This is definitely the hard part, since it's a lot of work without getting the reward of actually getting to have all of these audition experiences. Just know we've got you. You've got this. It will get much more fun in the next few months as you start actually doing the thing that you love to do. You actually get to do the auditions, right? So keep going with that hard work and it will pay off. All right, with that, let's get to our interview with Joel Ferrell from Southern Methodist University. Well, we are so excited to welcome Joel Ferrell. Joel has a BS in English and Communications from the University of Texas at Austin. He's directed and choreographed all over the place, including places like the Dallas Theater Center, Denver Theater Center, many more. As an actor, he says a long time ago, in Peter Pan and the First National Company of Cats. We'll let you do the math. He's been an associate artistic director of the Dallas Theater Center, an artistic director of Casa Manana Musicals, also adjunct theater faculty at places like Texas Wesleyan University, University of North Texas, and UT Arlington, before now becoming a professor of practice in theater and the inaugural director of the Sexton Institute for Musical Theater. We're going to talk specifically about that Sexton Institute as well as SMU as a whole, and all of this is at Southern Methodist University. I don't want to bury the byline there, which is located in University Park, Texas. They take classes of about 20 to 25 for the theater acting department, and then 10 musical theater majors. We're going to talk about this per year in this upcoming class, which they are now recruiting, where they'll offer BFAs in MT and BFA in theater acting. Joel, welcome on the pod. How are you feeling today?
I'm good, Charlie. I'm getting over my first fall cold, so I'm more of a bass baritone than I normally am. So
well, we appreciate it. You're giving us sonorous tones. You're giving me a run for my money, which is I appreciate that.
There you go. You sipping, it's for that reason.
I have a 4-year-old now, so the pod listeners will have experienced me going through every disease that's ever existed in the past 2 years. But now I feel like a superhuman. I haven't been sick in, I don't know, knock on wood, but 18 months. I've got it all at this point.
Yeah, I've got an immune system ready for whatever comes my way.
Is there anything that you want to? I mean, I gave you that little quick overview of sort of your career, but is there anything that you want to tell us just in terms of your journey to SMU? Just in terms of what we should know about you before we dive into the school itself.
I think the bio lets you know that I have sort of been all over the place. When people ask me what my plan was for my career, I guffaw. I moved to New York in 1982 with $500 in my pocket and a prayer. And dancing got me my first gigs, et cetera. The great thing about that time in New York was that I saw the Royal Shakespeare Company. I saw what Steppenwolf was bringing in and realized I think I'm meant to be a nonprofit. I don't think I have the stamina for-profit theater, but I'd like to root someplace. Like I'm always trying to figure out how to help artists find some version of an artistic home, because I think that is the great Achilles heel of American theater, is that artists, almost no artists, when you ask them about their life and their career, ever even mention the notion that they had some degree of security or love from some institution, organization, whatever.
Yep.
So
it's so interesting because we so often talk about also like that in terms of financial stability and financial security, but so often the reason artists get into acting, I mean, so many of our students, it's because they love the community and collaboration of high school theater, of going, this is my home. And then to graduate and feel like you, for the most part, it's hard to find that. It's hard to find an artistic home. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's so well said of like, it's the thing that you go, it's so weird. This is not like my high school theater where I did 6 years or 8 years or whatever with this hometown experience. And now it's a totally different, I'm vying for myself out here.
I spend a lot of time saying to our college, our incredible students at SMU, this may be the last time you have a family built around you, all the good and all the bad that goes with that, right? The bumps and the bruises, and you know too much about each other and all of that. But in a collaborative art form, it is way better to have layers of familiarity and love and history with one another than to walk in blind every time, because we always ask actors to be brave and take their walls down and whatever, but we don't set up a world where that's easy to do, or even wise necessarily. So
all the more reason you have to actively cultivate that for yourself in whatever city you're in, whether it's in the artistic home or finding a community where you go, okay, I work outside there, but then I really have this strong sense of home.
That is absolutely right. And I think that the best of the theater programs around the country are not limiting in this way. In fact, it's quite the reverse. But I think there is something to be said for a lot of the people that you work with in college and right out of college are those people that know you so well that whether it's coaching a monologue or asking them to produce your off-Broadway show, you're always building a network. That network begins really early. And as much as my gosh, the high school kids coming out right now are so smart and so good. I would be dead in the water if I were a high school student at this point. But, even they, as they come into college programs, suddenly the world gets bigger. everyone's talented, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So my journey really had altered. I had a minister father, Methodist minister father,
Yep.
a teacher mom, and a sociology doctor of sociology older brother. So I'm afraid I was doomed to nonprofit mission driven mindset. So really in every organization that I was part of, it was striving to figure out how to give artists in a specific area more work, more time on stage, more stability. I have a wonderful second home sort of I think of in Denver and for years also Portland, Oregon, because I worked at Portland Center Stage for many years. And it really is astonishing to me how many cities have phenomenal artists, and we're still fighting the battle with regional lord houses of, stop telegraphing to your audience that good people only come from New York. New York is full of people who came from Portland and Dallas and Denver, and so it's
of course.
And I think post-pandemic, I think we're at the tipping point where New York will always be the hub. It will always be significant to all of us. I'm heading there next week. But it is time for us to officially build a national theater network that supports people wherever they are.
It's so well said. I mean, I spent my first year out of school in DC, and I remember considering, I was auditioning all those theaters in DC, and I was like, oh, what if I started here? And I was told by, I think, smart people at the time, you're going to do better being cast from these theaters in DC by going to New York first. You go to New York and then come back on audition, they're going to look at you differently. I'll be the same actor if I move there, but somehow if your residence in New York, you get looked at differently. At least that was the truth back then. So
we're eking there. And I say to young artists all the time, I said, listen, there are so few models for you to look at of what a resident acting company looks like, or what a true acting company looks like. And and therefore there's nothing in front of you to compare and contrast. If you go to, if you do a little homework and especially, when I'm in England, I see anything the RSC does, because there's a texture to what they do that is palpably unique because they've known each other a lifetime. They work differently. So it's about trying to build young artists who are generative, who know better than to sit by the phone and wait for someone to invite them, that they have to make things constantly and put it out there. And I'm pleased to say that I think the generation that is hitting the pavement right now is much more that way.
Totally understand that. Well, let's get into especially what SMU, the kind of artists who are there currently. And I really we'll kind of do this discussion in all these questions to talk about sort of what has existed. So what is SMU in terms of the BFA theater program, but then also hearing about what the new MT program will be like as an extension of that. So, but I'd love to hear just giving us a little history of what has it meant to be an SMU student, and then the intention of what that'll be true for SMU MTs.
Well, I think first of all, SMU is now a Research One institution. So it has worked very hard over about 15 years to move from a really good liberal arts university to an extraordinary liberal arts university. And I think I can say with great confidence, it is a great liberal arts university with pretty tremendous leadership. But Meadows School of the Arts, which is, 50 years basically established, has been really quite an incredible school of the arts that whole time. And somehow over the last 25 years, I think it was the university, Dallas, the state of Texas. It was like Meadows was sort of taken for granted as, oh, Meadows is great. And someone put the brakes on sort of doing the PR and marketing, let the world know what you're actually doing. And so what I walked into when the dean of Meadows School of the Arts, Sam Holland, approached me about the possibility of adding an MT program was I said, well, I would want to do a bunch of investigation, because is this sort of rising up from the faculty? Is this students and parents are demanding it? What is this? And it was an interesting combination. It was less faculty and it was more prospective students, and the fact that alums and donors and great stakeholders at SMU were seeing other colleges produce these remarkable students who were getting Broadway gigs, and that didn't feel like something that SMU was producing. So I said, well, that's fine and all, but if you don't have the buy-in of the faculty and of the the fiber of the place. So I did a consultancy I found out that really what people's greatest concerns were, Charlie, was that adding something when everything was already a bit under-resourced and stretched
Mm-hmm.
capacity scared everyone to death. It was like,
Yep.
why when we are already stretched beyond reason, would we add something? And so I came back and said, look, here's the thing. If you're going to add MT, you need to make it an MT program that makes sense with SMU. And I had
Uh-huh.
strong opinions about what that was, and we can get into that. You need to go get a huge gift because there is simply no way
Yep.
that you will launch this and not deplete dance, music, and theater if you don't go get a
Yep.
gift. And then I think you need to, and here comes the comedy part, Charlie. And then I think you need to get a young, vital, remarkable young artist in the beginning of the peak of their career, who really will help you think about the next 40 years of musical theater.
And they
With
found one in you.
great respect, and 66 years old, baby. So they took that consultancy, they pondered. Unbeknownst to me, they went and got a $15 million gift from a remarkable woman named G. Marlene Sexton, who was a Broadway producer, among other things, and came back to me and said, okay, we will follow your lead. We will give you 3 years to build it so that there's full buy-in, and people understand what's coming, and we've talked about resources. We will, et cetera, et cetera. And even then I thought, yep, they're God bless them. They have worked hard. They are trying to set this up brilliantly. I still am not sure they realize what a heavy lift this is. Right. And the thing that turned the tide for me, the thing that made me say yes, even though, of course, when they came to me, I was thrilled. I was like, I don't think you read point 3 of the memo, but I understand because I already know the arts philanthropic community in Dallas and North Texas. I already know the stakeholders. So I'm like, sure, I get it. And I don't plan to work till I'm 80. I mean, I plan to work till I'm 80, but not, not breakneck at like this is. But the thing that really turned the tide was two things. One was the theater faculty, and dance faculty and music faculty, but specifically theater, were people that were so vital and so in the peak of their careers and still working in the industry. And the chair of that department had become my good friend Blake Hackler, who is a phenomenal educator, a phenomenal actor, a playwright, a director, a Yale grad, but someone who really is one of those rare human beings for whom being a theater educator and being a theater practitioner are literally equal for him. There's no separation. That is always how I have seen my mentoring, whether it was at a school or not, which is I'm going to go back to that thing about an acting company, right? A resident acting company, or, is that you're always teaching and mentoring because you're always bringing people into that family that are at the very beginning of their careers. And they're playing, the Lysanders and the Demetriuses and the Cornelius Hackles long before they ever get to the King Lears and the, Che Guevara's and whatever. So it just, I thought it is never going to be, things are never going to be lined up more perfectly for what I think this needs to, the journey I think this needs to take. So I'm jumping in, and it's been.
What did the 15 million go toward? That sounds like just an absurd amount of money. What is it? Are we building new facilities? Are we hiring new faculty? What is that about scholarships? What does the 15 million gift over these 3 years? We were talking about, hey, I remember this being announced. It felt like a long time ago, and that you've been building this. What has that been building?
First of all, basically all that 15 million got split into two pots, a large one and a smaller one. The smaller one was to endow the position that I'm in, among other key faculty things that have to get taken care of because we didn't have enough faculty or staff. And the rest of it goes into endowment so that it will generate an amount of money each year that will cover all of the added infrastructure costs. The big one for me is scholarships. You will hear me say this 1,000 times. We all know that college is insanely expensive. Private universities are really expensive. I think the recent estimate for students at SMU is $85,000 a year if you include living, et cetera. And so, and you and I both know that, if that if that becomes the reason, that if that becomes a barrier, then what are we doing?
Yep.
So I consider a major part of my job evangelizing and raising money. I
Yep.
like doing that. That's where the preacher's kid in me comes in. Um, we all know that the arts expand people's brains
Yep.
in incredible ways. One of the reasons that I get up every day and grin and jump into the fray again is I'm learning something new every day. I'm around every age group, from people
Yep.
older than me to college age and high school age. It's just, the vitality that is the smarts that you have to have
Yep.
to do anything in our industry. And I'll say industry, even though art form is what I mean. But again, because we are not all state funded,
Yep.
across the United States and getting less so, it is somehow this crazy blend of generative entrepreneur
Yep.
and craftsman.
So well said.
So,
Let's
yeah,
Yeah,
go
let's
ahead.
get a little bit to the curriculum of the program. So I want to talk more about scholarship in a bit as we go. But
You bet.
you mentioned this idea of sort of curricularly how it comes out of the acting program. Would you say that means that there is a focus that is a little bit more acting based in terms of the three legs of the stool of musical theater? Talk to me a little bit. What are those 4 years of curriculum going to look like?
It's you are spot on already, Charlie. The first 2 years, the students will really track right with the acting
Mm-hmm.
students and the theater studies students. So
Mm-hmm.
all of the fundamental stuff that they will get, obviously they will also get voice training and movement. And I'm calling it movement. We'll come back to that in
Yep.
just a moment. But what I find over and over again, and what I can say with complete certainty was true for me when I came out of college. And again, I didn't study theater, but I'd been a theater kid nonstop since I was tiny. And what I knew was that I could sing and dance, but I did not feel in my gut that I was an actor in terms of
Mm-hmm.
having a craft. And so I was shyer than I wish I had been with regard to declaring myself an actor
Mm-hmm.
and demanding a space in the room even beyond musical theater. And I really want our students to come out of that program knowing that they are actors who sing extraordinarily well and dance
Mm-hmm.
extraordinarily well.
Yep.
That is paramount to me. And I think when you look at the most successful programs, it's not necessarily the programs whose kids all move directly into the ensemble of musicals. It's the ones who are really starting to blossom when they hit 32, 35,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't mean, no work. And it doesn't mean that going directly into a Broadway show isn't amazing. That's what
Totally.
I did.
Yep.
But in some ways, that also stalled the maturation of me as an actor.
Yep.
Because when you are spending those years busting your hump in the ensemble of whatever, Cats, Mean
Yep.
Girls, then that means only you can be pouring your daytime energy into
Yep.
acting training, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a lot to ask. So I want to make sure that our students walk out of the place knowing that they are absolutely as capable of walking into a Shakespeare audition, um, a TV audition, any of that. That brings me back to movement. And I
Yep.
think, Charlie, where I have found myself, first of all, our dance program is rock star level right now. I don't think the world understands, and I'm gild the lily here, but we have Silas Farley, former New York City Ballet soloist. We have Michelle Gibson, who's one of the most remarkable Afro-Latino teachers you will ever meet. Parisa Kobda has just come on board. I mean, it really is just a superstar group. It is, of course, has been designed mostly to send students into concert dance,
Uh-huh.
you know, but they are making all the adjustments to fully prepare for us. I think where I am finding myself, and I say this as an old dancer who was a School of American Ballet scholarship baby, I think we are still working to get the colonial white European
Uh-huh.
out of the mindset
Uh-huh.
where we are, especially with young women. And so what I am intending is that this program will absolutely meet your movement needs. And if you come in as a good ballet dancer, we will continue your ballet training at the highest possible level. But if you are not someone who's ever going to get a job based on your
Uh-huh.
ballet training, then we're going to concentrate you elsewhere. So I'm asking all the students will be asked to take an Afro-Latino class. Again, body awareness, incredible rhythmic virtuosity, all of that, but no body shape, no your butt's too big, no, and again, I think everybody is working at that, but it is still very hard given how many decades, how many centuries it is embedded in us that you have to look X to be a dancer, or you have to, And so I think we are trying to meet those students. And again, with only 40 at our full contingent, we can meet each one of those kids sort of where they live.
The acting majors, or the theater, hyphen acting majors, how does that work in terms of their ability to, I guess, cross the membrane of music? Like, are they going to take some of these new musical theater dance classes? Are they, if they want to take voice lessons with the, how does that work in terms of, will it shape and change the theater acting program as well?
Well, Charlie, now I'm going to hedge my bet a little bit and say that, yes, my fervent hope is that this cross-pollination is going to tickle everyone's fancy, and that, yes. So if we can, I mean, you know how many hours you got to put in to get a musical theater degree. I mean, it literally makes it hard unless you're an extraordinary student to have a minor or a double major. I'm trying to at least make room that they can have a minor. I think the theater students, what we will find in fairly short order is, yes, we can offer them some of that if they really want it, as long as we, as a wise and caring faculty and their advisors and mentors, are like, look, you still have to get these things under your belt before you graduate. So let's be smart about this. I'm also, again, this is out in front of us, but I have a great goal of creating some summer programming that will allow people to not only get some credits and build some semi-professional credits on their resume. We have a campus in Taos, New Mexico, that is one of the most splendiferous, magical places you will ever go. And the person who runs that entire campus and I are having some rather deep, I won't go farther than that at the moment, but my hope is to also be able to use that campus in the summer and at other key moments to really be a place to sort of escape and hunker down and get on things where you can add some credits, but also be working on new material, et cetera.
Really cool. Can we talk, you mentioned already the idea of minors and double majors. Can we talk about, as much as you can, I know it's not going to be identical to every student, but what percentage of the time from an SMU student, we can both talk maybe musical theater major, but then also acting major, what percentage of time is spent within, let's say, the arts? So within your acting, singing, dancing, even theater history, the arts classes, versus what percentage of time are you spending outside in the university where you could be getting that minor or double major?
Right. Honestly, I would say it's about 75% of the time that you're in the dungeon, in the most of our but I will say this, that what you find then when you step out into those other classes are extraordinary teachers. And I mean, truly extraordinary. And I'm really hopeful that, especially if a kid is willing to do more hours than the average, et cetera, that we can, I mean, we have a tremendous arts entrepreneur program. We have, we've just got killer, we're right next to a school of theology. And I'm like, how incredible it would be to make sure students can take some degree of philosophy or theology or, all that. So I'm cautious about talking about how expensive it may be, because I'm trying to make sure that I don't make promises that I can't keep. But I think it is always a bit of a tightrope to figure out how to give kids room to go expand their brains. I think some of that is going to have to do for us, Charlie, with concentrating a good bit on new work and on new work that is steeped in good literature or good, in other words, if we can get some of the investigation done with work, right?
Right, that almost dramaturgy becomes history, becomes,
correct. Really challenge ideas there. And, as you know, I'm so mad I wasn't a history major in college, because once I got out and started working, I realized that everything I directed and everything I choreographed was me just doing a deep dive into that moment in history in a way that I was like, what was I doing? Communications, what even is that? So I regret nothing. I had a lot of fun in college, but if I could go back, if I were getting a terminal degree, it would probably be in either theater history or just or history of a specific period, because it's endlessly fascinating.
You mentioned the theology classes. Can we talk a little bit about the Methodist of it all in Southern Methodist University? So how would you, just from a large perspective, how would you describe the sort of religious aspects of the school as a whole? And I'd love to kind of hear about it. We'll have some listeners for whom like the idea of religion will be kind of foreign, and they'll feel like, hey, I don't believe anything. And then we'll have some listeners maybe who are like, hey, I'm actually really interested in SMU because of potential religious aspects. So if you're someone who's interested in that or not, what would this school look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Charlie. I think the great news is SMU really always has allowed there to, when you're on the campus, you don't feel like you're in any way a religious university. I mean, there's nothing, there's no required participation in any way, shape, or form. So the way I like to talk about it is as what is available to you if you are interested in theology. Mm-hmm. Right? As if you're interested in forms of theology as a course of study, certainly if you are a person of faith, SMU offers you some lovely things that I think you would probably appreciate and would help sort of ground you and make you feel more at home. I mean, as far as I can tell, in our arts programs and in the theater program, I can't really think of a student right now who I would say is like, picked SMU in any way, shape, or form.
Don't know about the religion,
because of the Methodist of SMU.
Yeah.
But for me, again, I think the Perkins School of Theology, and again, this is from a Methodist minister's son who is less interested in organized religion and far more interested in thought processes over time in history. Really great thinkers over there, really broad-minded, extraordinary, open-armed people, so that if you want to do any intersection with that, there's no watch your P's and Q's, careful what you say. There's none of that crap. You know what I'm saying? Like you bring yourself fully in and ask every question and explore anything you want to explore. That is what college is about.
Yeah. And do you feel like, is there any effect on the theater program being housed within a religious institution? Is there anything in terms of do you feel like, hey, we'd be a little less likely than some other schools to do certain plays or that we feel like, or do you feel like, no, that doesn't affect me at all?
No, it does not affect us at all. In fact, I would honestly say it's not like the School of Theology is unaware of what we do, and we do radically out there stuff. I mean, I have never ever heard a conversation, and nor would I be okay with a conversation that was about editing what we wanted to investigate. The human condition is the human condition, and so and again, the world is difficult right now.
Yep.
But we still have not experienced any inkling in any way of anything other than open your arms wide and make a safe space for everyone.
Well, and that maybe leads me to just give me a little bit of a picture. If I'm not someone who knows the South very well, if I don't know SMU very well, what is the experience of the campus of SMU? What is the experience of like, what do I get beyond just the academics outside of the arts program? But what does it feel like to be a student on that campus?
Charlie, so please forgive me, I'm going to ask you, have you been to Dallas before? Is Dallas familiar?
Dallas, yes, for me, yes.
Okay, great.
But not all our listeners necessarily.
No, please. And I will say, just to lay this out there, that, Dallas and Austin and Houston are really very metropolitan. I would say they're even they are incredibly diverse. And I would say they're even moving toward feeling like international cities. I mean, it is, we have thriving economies, all of that. So what's interesting for me about the campus of SMU is it's in Highland Park, which is one of the wealthier neighborhoods in all of Texas. Yeah. But it's also right on the edge of a freeway that was cut through the middle of Dallas, I don't know, 60 years ago, something like that, 75. And so you are literally moments away from anything in Dallas you want, any part of it, any neighborhood. I mean, you're sort of sitting on this great artery where, in no time you can step out of the sort of, the campus is really beautiful. It's sort of, I'm going to screw this up if I tell you what kind of architecture, so I won't, but it's
would mean nothing to me anyway.
Incredibly warm, incredibly beautiful campus. But for me, the great thing is the campus feels safe and cozy and inviting and warm. But, I think all of our students would tell you that they have access to anything in Dallas and Fort Worth that they want to get to in a hurry. And they go explore all of that. And we are listen, one of the things that's been so interesting to me when I left for New York, when I was 21 years old and never, ever expected to come back to Texas. And now here I am, have been back in Texas for quite some time. I do have to say that, Dallas has been progressing in the last 15, 20 years in the most astonishing ways. And so I I really enjoy my life here, and I am, a queer man who grew up in this world, and it's really been surprising and pleasing to see these major cities sort of make a place at the table.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is SMU has not only been working hard at making sure it's not closed or insulated. We have a brand new president and a brand new provost, and it is very clear to me that we're gonna invite all of Dallas in and enjoy the buffet. Yeah.
I love it. To that end, I guess, how many of your students are from Dallas or from Texas in general, in terms of especially the theater students? What percentage do you feel like are from Dallas or from the surrounding areas versus how many students are from around the country? And then I want to ask the reverse of where do you think, how many of them choose to stay in Dallas after they graduate versus go to LA, Atlanta, New York, et cetera?
That's so interesting, Charlie. Gosh, and I guess I should know those percentages precisely, but I'm going to say
I need it to a decimal point. Otherwise, it's
that's right. Otherwise, we're going to hold me to this. But I would say about 50 to 60% of our students are from the area.
Yep.
I would say another 10% or so are from somewhere in Texas. Obviously, our state is the size of several small countries. Yep. So, but then the rest are from all over. I mean, we've got a lot of California, a lot of Florida, a lot of New York, a lot of Kansas. Interesting, like from the Kansas City area. Again, we work, Seattle. I mean, it's really interesting to me that we have some people that have been looking at SMU since they were early in high school because they heard about it or they know about it or their uncle or whatever. And then we always have the students who in their freshman year are like, well, I never dreamed I was coming to SMU, but then I met the faculty and was like, I got to go to SMU. And that's exactly what you want to hear. I mean, that's thrilling to us. And not only do we almost never, ever lose a student, they come, it is what we told them it would be and as good as that, if not better. And I would say then it's about 50-50 in terms of staying in the area. I mean, the great news is we have, there are 2 or 3 or 4 theater companies being run by SMU grads. There are producers in town that are SMU grads. There's, some of my closest colleagues in the world are SMU grads, but we also have grads kicking ass all over the place. And I'm pleased that what has turned out to be true of the theater studies track, which again is everybody's basically in the same track for 2 years, and then splits, and theater studies starts to explore playwriting and directing, producing. And boy, some of those former students are just killing it out in the world. They just killing it. So again, that creates a network where when you get out of school, you don't just know actors. You also know producers and administrators and people that are, in the Niederlander organization or in the, when I'm like, that's what we need. We need the biggest network.
I love it. Let's talk. Well, let's get into that. Let's talk about how do you help your students, when they graduate. Let's talk about sort of the launch into the business, both, I guess, for the actors, what you're anticipating for the MTs as you're coming and building that program, if it's anything different, and then just in general as your students in terms of that support as their launch into the business.
Well, so one thing that I keep talking about, so we have recently announced that our inaugural music director for the program is Kimberly Grigsby, who 25, 30 original Broadway shows. I mean, she's just closed the new Dolly show in Nashville and, now waiting, they're figuring out when they're going into the city, et cetera. But she's working on an Adam Gettle show. She's, and she's a Meadows grad. And I was shocked, frankly, that she was interested in the gig itself. I was just hoping to get her to be an artist in residence on a fairly regular basis. But again, Kim is one of those people, sort of like Blake Hackler I mentioned, where mentoring and being an artist and passing on the art form are of equal weight to her as they are to me, as they are to Blake. So what I keep talking about is starting to create a high level of access from the moment they come in, so that their master classes, who they intersect with, who they get to know, is not just actors. It's producers, it's, sort of all the things that I was just laying out. And I think that we both know that in the MT world, music directors, choreographers, and casting directors are like paramount in knowing them, knowing how they think, how they work, all that kind of good stuff. So we will do all of the things, and I hope then some, that I think most good programs do in terms of trying to give their students access. Then after the fact, and this is where I think we can be better than we currently are. I mean, we have some really astonishing alumni who are generating incredible things. Will Trice and a guy named Travis Ballinger, who was the associate producer on MJ the Musical, and Brian Baumgartner. I mean, there's all kinds of people who are they're Meadows grads, and I don't think most people know they're Meadows grad, and I don't think people know how willing they are to be mentors and support network. So I not only want to get alums more involved than they have been in all aspects, but then I got to say that a lot of what I am looking at, and Kim and Blake and I talk about this regularly, is I would love to believe that this program at Dallas is going to help the ecosystem of professional theater in Dallas and Fort Worth begin to think of itself as a place where you want to come. And I mean, look, we did it at the Theater Center really well for a decade. I mean, we sent 3 shows to the public, we sent 2 shows to Broadway, and those shows were rarely picked based on commercial appeal alone. Sometimes they were, but Michael John LaCusa's Giant was always going to be a big lift. I think it's a masterwork. Don't know that, I'm still hoping opera companies around the country will pick it up because, but the richness of the work, I mean, the incredible process from the beginning is sort of everything I feel like that has really done me a world of good in my career is because I got in the room when the thing was being made.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, I'm proud to say I've stolen things from the finest people in the industry.
Yeah. That's a much tougher task to come in and go, now let me pick you. Now that it's already going to Broadway, let's look at the competition's a very different kind of competition you're stealing from. Yeah.
And I was the kind of person that was always sort of going, okay, how does the whole beast work? Like if you have, you generate a good idea. Now, how do you caretake it? How do you, and we are still struggling with that in America, again, because we're not state funded, all of that. But I think universities in thriving cities with significant arts ecosystems are one of the places. I mean, I look at Pittsburgh and I think there's a different level of talent and energized youth arts, everything in that city because of Point Park and Carnegie Mellon. I mean,
you're looking at a Carnegie Mellon grad, if you can believe it. Come on.
Yeah, no, you believe it. And I directed Young Frankenstein at Pittsburgh CLO last summer, not the summer before. And my two of my leading ladies were literally just graduating, and they already had the maturity to from Carnegie Mellon, and they already had the maturity to come in and sort of know how to play. Know how to go, hey, I can make a bunch of assumptions, I can, whatever, but they knew how to prepare and then how to toss that out of their way if it was hindering them. And I was like, damn, well, I'm never going to not be looking forward to working with those 2 young women again. I mean, I said to both of them, please just pretend you know me one day when you're extraordinarily famous. I will take that because I don't think of great artists as a certain age or when you're good, you're good. When you're a joy to be in the room with, you're a joy to be in the room with. So suddenly all of that other crap does not matter. But you have to be in a program that gives you that training and that access.
Yeah.
So that's not terrifying to you.
You'd mentioned the idea of cost earlier of $85,000 per year. Oh my gosh, that's I'm guessing all fees included and not just tuition.
That's all fees and a predicted up and beyond. And it's terrifying to me because I went to a state school and barely could afford that in 1906. So, it's just
1906.
Shocking.
Unbelievable. But talk to me about how do scholarships work? So if people are interested in SMU, but they go, that sticker price would be a little too much for me. How does it work in terms of academic scholarships, in terms of talent-based scholarship, artistic scholarships that exist, need-based? How does it work in terms of how you would navigate that?
Well, here's where I'm hoping that I don't say anything that isn't true, because this will be the year where, boy, will I dive headlong into all of this.
Yeah.
We have an extraordinary amount of financial aid. I mean, I can already, proudly say to any potential student, do not assume that you can't afford to come to SMU.
Right.
You very well may be able to come to SMU, but that is why I consider it a major part of my job to fundraise specifically for scholarships.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's an educator in the world who doesn't wish that what they could do is say, my program is full scholarship.
Right.
Full ride.
The previous episode, as we released this from Texas State, they just said it's tuition free. And you go, that's the thing that every program wants to be able to do, of course.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, again, one of the things I say to my fearless leaders and administrators, and that they are completely open and available to hear it. They're not saying be quiet over there, is we're going to be in direct competition with Texas State.
For sure.
And before the scholarship, it's still a more affordable place.
Yeah.
The state school, if you're in state, right? So for instance, amazing young artist, Fabiola, who just won the Jimmy Awards and was I direct the Broadway Dallas High School Musical Theater Awards every year. So I've known her now for all of her years in high school. And, she was going to Texas State and then got and Juliet on her. So she's in that struggle of like, oh shit, the success is coming so quickly. But she's a really remarkable young woman, and I know she'll be fine. But I'm like, boy, that, there are a lot of, Fabiola would be a brilliant example of somebody who there is no way she could afford a wildly expensive school.
Yeah.
I mean, so and I'm happy to say on her behalf, she's so damn talented. Someone was going to offer
her money. Yeah.
But it is what I'm watching. I'm now in my 7th year of directing the Broadway Dallas High School Musical Theater Awards, and we've really changed the model a bit to try to make it's in no way pay for play. We give the tickets away for people to come see. We do shadow programs so the kids can have access to the designers and the technicians and and every year we try to build even more, because again, if a kid in their freshman year of high school can see what the horizon actually offers, I'm like less concerned that I get that great kid than they just have it all splayed out in front of them and they can go for it big. That said, I'm a competitive son of a gun. And, so I am, I think a lot of it too is beginning to look at students. They're just smarter. They're farther along. They're thinking about college at the end of their sophomore year, some of them. I mean, we have high schools in Texas where I'm like, I have conversations with kids going to their junior year, and I'm like, Jesus, you know more about going to college than I knew when I graduated college.
We're in our 5th year of this podcast. I now have had people who've talked to me who've said, I've been listening since the beginning. I was like, since the beginning? That means your kid was in 7th grade, 8th grade. Like, that's amazing, but great.
It's thrilling because I often get emails from very young people, and I'm like, I don't think I would have ever had the nerve to email. First of all, there was no email when I would, but it all felt daunting, and like, you were heading to the Emerald City and you didn't know the Oz. And now, thank God, as much as algorithms and all that crap is harmful, there is availability. And so if a kid has any bit of chutzpah, and we both know that gets you a long, long, long way, right? I mean, the sheer stamina and ability to say, I belong in the room, talk to me, look at me, listen to me is huge. Because what can happen for a young artist between beginning of freshman year and end of senior year is just phenomenal. Right.
All right, let's take a short break. And on the back end, we're going to talk a little bit more about the audition admission process. So we're back in a flash. All right, we are back with Joel Ferrell, and we're going to talk a little bit about the audition admission process, knowing this is unique, really. This is really, you're starting your first year. You're recruiting now for the first time starting in the next couple of months. So I'd love to say, as you look forward at it artistically, as you look at the audition process, what are you looking for? Or at least what do you think you're going to be looking for in these rooms when you talk about musical theater majors?
Well, so I guess the good news, bad news is that I've been casting actors in musicals for 38 years. And I still say the same thing, which is it is the most unbelievably glorious, hard job you can. I mean, come on, you sit in a room and artists come in and you're just like, how am I this lucky? And I have always said to actors what I will say to the young artists who are coming for this, which is I have a limited amount of time to get to know you.
Yeah.
Right. I can figure out the level of technique you have so far. I can figure out the level of training you have at this point, dance wise. I can figure that out very quickly. Really, what I need to do, you need to figure out whether you want to spend 4 years hanging around me.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out whether we can give you the things that you really want and you really need at this program, because there's so many other good programs.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been really impressed, I've been sort of trailing the recruiters, our incredible faculty for the last couple of years for the theater majors. And one of the things that has been so impressive and so delightful, and then I'm like, oh, breathe, Joel, you can do this, is that in the industry, often you're trying to move at warp speed 10.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've witnessed from them is like, under no circumstance, right? If it takes us days, if it takes us, it's like, no, when we leave here, the prospective student will know, and we will know whether this is a good fit. And I have to say, the payoff for that is like, our students in the theater program right now I love them. They're phenoms. They are from everywhere. They are insanely diverse for all the right reasons, all of that. But all of them had a really good sense of what they were walking into. They didn't come in and go, oh, wait a minute, this is not what anyone talked to me about. And I think a lot of that starts with, we do not, one of the things that, and I'm going to jump way back, 20, 30, 40 years when MT programs got started. And again, everything was based out of European white, operetta, and then the golden age and the whatever, is that we tended to homogenize students. Mm-hmm. And I think we are fast discovering that it is hard enough to stand out without having molded yourself into something inauthentic. Mm-hmm. So we overuse these words, but my potent feeling is the same thing is true for me as a director in the industry as it is true, which is I want a unique individual who will argue with me and who will challenge me, mm-hmm. and who is willing to take big risks. And I cannot ask them to take big risks if I haven't made a safe space for them.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really proud that as I've spent time getting to know the faculty, and this is unbelievably true of our dance program right now too, is that the higher you hold the bar of rigor and expectation, the higher the empathy level has to be. Like you can't, and I was that kind of kid. I was like, listen, if you try to dominate me by like shaming me and whatever, I'm like, listen, I'm already a scared rabbit. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, do enough of that to myself. I do myself up
believe me. Yeah, I will beat the crap out of me later on. You don't need to help. And I really walked into an industry at the time in the late 70s, early 80s that was pretty abusive. I mean, it really was. It was mean. It was just damn mean. And so what I learned in summer stock, of all places, which goes so fast and where no one worries about feelings because we have 11 seconds to shit this show on stage, was, hey, you know what? If you're smart in the room and you keep your head down and you just freaking do it, they'll ask you to do it again.
Yeah.
And so it helped me. The minute I moved to New York, I was like, don't take everything personally, because none of it is. And I think that's where I sort of found myself going, yeah. I think that's why I need to be a nonprofit, mission-driven, and probably something that mutates around education or mentoring, because I can't remove the humanity from. I can't do it. I will not have those conversations.
Well,
so
you heard it here, folks. You have to argue with Joel in your audition to get in. That'll do it. But can we talk a little bit how it works with the pre-screen process in terms of, right? This is for the musical theater candidate, have pre-screen and then the actual audition, in terms of what might you be looking for that's different in a pre-screen video to get that yes to that point, and then what might be ultimately different in terms of the live audition itself.
The $24,000 million question, and you'd think I'd have a already well-designed answer. We all say that we're looking for unique individuals, and I think for me that means, first of all, as you pick material, as you deliver I don't care if it's a song that's been sung 1,000 times, like all of those things that I understand why we talk about them. Don't sing a song that's been sung 1,000 times. Don't do a monologue that everyone knows. I'm like, listen, I have auditioned thousands upon thousands of people. If they walk in and sing If I Loved You, and 8 seconds into it, I have fallen into their human spirit, I'm like, that's because the song is great. That's why we keep using it. So don't throw away all the good material because someone has told you have to go find something weird or offbeat. And also, I've never heard you sing it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is the thing we all keep having to wrap our brain around. I'm going to go for a minute. Just forgive me for this because I didn't know who you were married to until we were starting this podcast. And I'm like, there would be a shining example of, I'm like, I've heard Elizabeth Stanley sing things that I've heard 1,000 other people sing. She makes it her own the minute she opens her mouth. I'm like, yeah, that is why we are artists. Of course we're telling the same myths and the same stories and the same whatever. So first of all, it's like, if you love the material, grab it and do it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And so, any of that notion of like, oh, you may never play that role because I'm like, first of all of that has been thrown out the window. Praise God.
For sure.
I mean, it has. I've done all female productions of, I've done all men. I've done it's like, we're in a day and age where I'm like, nobody can afford to do giant musicals. So everybody's going to play everybody,
But it's also not, it's not what you're doing in the college audition. You're not auditioning for the musical. So you're getting to show here's part of my human soul. It's not, here's what I'm going to be cast as 5 years from now.
I will say this, Charlie, that one of the things that breaks my heart a little bit is often when a young artist finishes a monologue or a song, I say, hey, what drew you to that song? What do you really connect with that monologue? And all too often that trips them up. All too often it's like, well, my teacher gave me this, or they said it was in my range, or this is my type, and I'm like, listen, it's okay if that's partly true, because sure,
right,
but please be able to BS me better than that. Come on. Like, I'm like,
argue with Joel. Tell him that this I was given to me, but then I fell in love with it because what?
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I may say to you, I don't think that composer and lyricist is as good as you think they are. And I want you to go, you are so wrong, you asshole. This is why I believe in them. We won't mention names, but we all have our strong opinions. And I care how you connect with the work and how you find your way in is meaningful to me.
Yep. I love it. And you mentioned this, of course, this is new to you, but in terms of the experience of like the academics and then the artistic. So if you want someone artistically, how does that then work with the balance of academic admission in terms of, do students always have to apply to the university first? Are they getting that academic first? And do you have a sense of sort of how it's going to work in terms of the artistic and the academic?
So glad you asked that, Charlie. And I don't know if this is daunting or not, because I don't know this world as well as I will know it 3 years from now. But yes, you do have to apply to the university and then to Meadow School of the Arts. I mean, you could do that in essence simultaneously. And obviously an incredible grade point average is just that much better, put you to the top. But to be honest, again, we have, I'm going to mention these names because they're two of my favorite humans on the planet, Ryan Cole and Michaela Brooks, in our recruiting department at Meadow School of the Arts. And not only were they the first two to be like, MT, we love it, we're in, like they have been patient with me in trying to get me out of industry head and into academic head. But it really is a sort of like, all I need any prospective student to do is ask, just keep asking. Say, I can't come if I don't have more money. I can't come if I don't have more, just do not hesitate to ask. And I know sometimes that comes from a bullish parent, and that's great. But whoever it comes from, I just am always saying to students, and will never stop saying it, email me personally and go, Joel, I'm hurting here. One of the things that I would just say really quickly was that Kim Grigsby tells the story all the time. She did her graduate at Manhattan School of Music, and she's phenomenal. She was recruited to come to SMU, and she didn't really plan to do it. She didn't know anything about SMU. She'd never been to SMU. She'd never been to Dallas. She didn't care about it. But her dad, who was in the military, said, how much money is the other school giving you? And she said, not as much as SMU. And he said, then you're going to SMU. And then Kim was the kind of student who made SMU what it needed to be for her. If that makes sense. So when she said, you promised we'd do musical theater when I got here, and they weren't exactly, they were like, okay. So they did a production of Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and they brought in Andre DeShields to direct it. And Andre was like, who's the musical director? And they're like, we're still trying to figure that out. And Kim was over playing the piano extraordinarily, I think a sophomore maybe. And he was like, do you want to be the MD? And she was like, hell yes, I want to be the MD. And they have worked together now for
Wow.
40 years, right? I mean, they did full Monty together. I mean, they're still the sweet friends and collaborators they were when he realized what he had in front of him. And so a lot of it is also the students' willingness to be like, I have a major hand in making this what I need it to be for me.
Yep. So well said. In terms of the audition tour itself, is it going to be similar to how SMU has done things in the past in terms of, are you doing national unifieds? Are you doing munifieds? Is the MT basically doing the same tour that you've done previously?
Listen, Charlie, if I'm alive in April, buy me a drink because
I may buy you a drink in LA or something.
Yeah, please. That would be, I would love that. Unifieds, munifieds, drunifieds. I'm like,
if it's got an unifieds in it, you're there.
If it has unifieds in it, I'm there. And even beyond that, I'm like, there are pockets of places. I mean, we all know how this works because I was that kid. I'm like, oh my God, just, so I'm going to the Valley of Texas. I think I'm going to Denver. I'm trying to get I mean, we know, there's unbelievable students everywhere. And without, again, I don't mean this as a random gambling thing. I just mean that like, I'm constantly surprised at this point in my career at the serendipity that goes on when I meet a fellow where I'm like, oh, how have we not known each other for like this has to be an artistic relationship now. So it is me trying to go absolutely everywhere. And Kim, when she's not rehearsing a Broadway show, and Blake is going with me on a lot of that this year. Even though technically he will, I mean, he is faculty of musical theater, but he's the chair of the theater program. But he teaches all of the students in their first year. And he is a phenom. And so, we're on the grand tour to meet everyone and open arms wide.
The great grand tour. I love it. All right. Well, let's wrap just because I know we're already over our allotted time, and I appreciate you giving us so much of it. Will you talk to me a little bit about, advice for the parents? We have a lot of parent listeners this podcast, and I know over your time you'll have interacted a lot with parents of students. What advice would you have for them in terms of their guiding their child through this process?
Wow. First of all, I'm thrilled I'm not a parent having to guide my child through this process right now because it's a wild world right now. And I do think the thing that is great from a parent is them asking all the questions they know probably annoy their son or daughter, their child, but have to be asked about not getting swayed easily by things that don't matter in the long run. And I think a lot of that is how do they feel about the relationships? Granted, there's not a ton of time to build them, my email is wide open to any parent. And really, I want them to know what our faculty is like in general, our faculty and staff support, because I really believe in them wholeheartedly. And I think that it is, we can let your amazing young artist discover themselves and be who they need to be. We will give them good training. We will give them great tools. But, this 4 years should be a beautiful discovery process of being challenged constantly and being extraordinarily well supported in that. And it's funny because what I hear from a lot of the parents who are already parents of our theater students is, first of all, if they're not from Dallas, it's great because it's easy to get to Dallas. We're a quick flight from everywhere, it turns out. And it's a great city to hang out in. It is, I think it's a surprise to a lot of people from the Northeast and maybe from LA that Dallas feels as open-armed and progressive as it does. And again, I don't sugarcoat anything. So, I'm not saying that Texas as a whole doesn't have its issues, but I know what students experience when they come to SMU, and it is an extraordinary level of meeting them where they are and loving them.
I love it. That's well said. All right. Now, if people want more information after this, you mentioned your email is always open. Do you want to direct them to social media, to websites, just to email you directly? What's the best way to learn more about SMU?
You can email me directly at joelferrell@smu.edu. I'm Ferrell. But we also on the website for Meadow School of the Arts, if you go to theater, musical theater is obviously a category in that. And we are continuing to add to that website. A lot of new stuff will go on it all summer long. But you can look at the faculty, you can explore sort of how the whole thing got rolling. And then what I what I'm happy to say, Charlie, is that this first crop of students are going to get
Yeah.
an unbelievable amount of attention.
Yep.
I mean,
4 years of waiting, building, or
I'm
3 years
like,
or whatever.
man, they
Yeah.
are going to get an incredible amount of attention, and as will the subsequent groups. But they're also going to teach me, right? I mean, this is going to be my big, glorious learning curve. So I am working to make myself. Hell, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm completely available, and if it takes me more than a day to get back to you, just know that that's because I am trying to get back to everybody.
And they can send you 2 more emails to ping you once a day.
That's as they should.
As they should. Joel, it was so fun getting to chat with you. Thanks so much for the time.
Me too. Thank you, Charlie.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Joel. What a lovely man he is. I really enjoyed chatting with him. Okay, that was a long episode. I'm going to try to do the rare thing and actually keep this takeaway short. We'll see how I do. I've got 2 quick hitters and one that's slightly longer. The first quick hitter was just to kind of commend SMU. I think you got this from the episode, but I want to commend them on the idea that they really took the time necessary to really build this program. It doesn't mean it'll be a huge success necessarily, but I think about the way we talked about Texas State, and they're really taking that time for the transition. SMU really taking the time to make sure they were doing it right or doing it with intentionality is great. We definitely have seen a lot of musical theater programs spring up very quickly as the demand really sprung up over the 20 years we've been doing this. And sometimes you'll really see the growing pains of a program that sprouts up really quickly and didn't necessarily have enough to support what the growth was, right? That doesn't mean that those programs can't figure it out or didn't. Many of them did. But, I definitely would feel a bit more loath to be the first incoming class at a program where it felt like it was thrown together really quickly, and just hope that they'll figure it out. I hope they'll get the resources, right? That feels to me like a campaign promise from a politician, which I'm generally suspicious of. But in this case, it's like hearing a campaign promise and knowing it's already fully funded, right? Knowing that the budget's already been passed, it's been planned out, right? So you can have a bit more faith that it'll actually happen, right? It's still a leap of faith anytime you're embarking on the new compared to a program that's, been around for 50 years or whatever. We've talked about that before when you talk about the positives and negatives. And I think there really are positives along with the negatives of being in that first kind of guinea pig year. But again, with this case, the intentionality pulls away some of the negatives, right? Knowing that they've really planned this out, that it's not thrown together, it gives me a bit more confidence. And like I said in the intro, it's also helpful already having established yourself in one area like USC and Oberlin, we talked about as acting and with music schools, compared to a brand new school that doesn't have an arts reputation at all. Okay, that quick hitter wasn't too quick. Let's just keep it going. I just wanted to mention the idea of what Joel talked about with Blake, his colleague, being on the audition tour. He mentioned Blake's coming on. He's doing so many things, he's doing so many things. He was kind of a toss away line about how great Blake is, which I'm sure Blake is wonderful. But I really think it's worth considering with all of these professors. It kind of struck me as we hit this time of year of when you see these professors on the audition tours, with some few exceptions, like Rebecca Overton, we had on the pod from Cap 21, whose job it really is to do the audition tour. Most of the professors you're going to be meeting, they have 15 other jobs they're doing at the school besides recruiting, right? They're directing shows, they're teaching classes, they're watching all these pre-screen videos, right? And you often just catch them right smack in the middle of that process wherever they are. So if it helps a bit for you as maybe an auditioner, to kind of picture them in their underwear, which I've never appreciated that analogy. I don't know why that would make you more comfortable to picture old people in their underwear, but those people in the audience, they likely are just as exhausted and just as overwhelmed as you are going through this process. And some of them going through it for the first time, just like you, right? We talk about this a lot with Pittsburgh Unifieds. For these families, they're about to do this week. Even those who feel really prepared, they often feel pretty nervous and stressed about this is really the beginning of their audition process. Well, I'll just say it's true for these professors too. It is their beginning as well. Most of them have just gotten their bearings in October on this year's class, right? They've only been back for a month at this point, or a month and a half, right? They've just gotten into the groove with their current freshmen, and now they have to turn to recruiting the next year, right? Not that there's a ton actionable there, but just to say kind of we're all in this journey together. Blake and all of us. Okay. And my last point is just to underline what Joel said about chutzpah. He said it in a few different ways. He's talking about he's looking for students with chutzpah. And then he also talked about, he wants students that are going to argue with him. When he asks questions, he wants people who push back. To put that in our language, that we've used on the pod before, I think he's looking for students with a point of view, right? To argue that they belong in the room, and also to argue that they have an artistic perspective all of their own, right? It's not just about how you answer the question, why did you pick this material? Like, you need to coach that and practice that answer. That's not what we're talking about, right? It's them looking to see, is there a substance? Is there a person there with opinions and a willingness to express them, to push back against you? Or if I push on you, are you just going to fall over, right? It's kind of a different version of what we talked about in these takeaways with confidence versus cockiness. How many students these days that they don't come in cocky, though again, of course, that would be an issue if you actually did come in cocky, but more of our students come in with what I call too much humility, sometimes a false humility, right? They've almost like erased their own point of view. They've erased their artistry out of a desire to like not make too much noise or not put a foot wrong, not make a mistake. And some of that is nerves. Some of that can be perfectionism for those who struggle with that. But I do think some of it is like modern internet culture, right? The desire to not be cringe. I understand that you don't want to be like, oh God, it's so cringe, right? But to be an artist, sometimes you have to risk being cringe. You have to risk being wrong and sticking your foot in your mouth and failing, making that mistake in order to make really great art, right? But all of that takes a confidence and a self-assuredness that's hard to have at 17. There's one test I like to do with our students when we're practicing interviews, which is basically just like to make sure when I ask you, who are you? You're not answering me, whoever you want to be, right? And I don't mean that literally students would say, I'm whoever you want me to be, right? But often you would get that feel from behind the table that that's basically what they're saying when I ask them the question, right? If I'm asking, who are you, which I would theorize that 90% of the questions the colleges are asking you are, who are you? They're going to ask it in 15 different ways. They may say, hey, why are you a good fit for this school? Or why did you pick this material? Whatever it is, they're saying, who are you, right? Tell me about your strengths. Tell me about your weaknesses. It's all, who are you, right? And then the student often, when asked who they are, try to give me the right answer, right? It's a tricky balance. And of course, it's wrong to give me the right answer. Give me the true answer. Don't give me the quote unquote right answer, right? I would say it's a tricky balance as an artist because the instinct to show that you are flexible and moldable is a really good instinct, right? We wouldn't want you to feel like an artist who says, I am this and only this, and it will never change. That's who I am, right? But we also don't want you to say, I'm everything and anything, and I have no point of view. I'm water. I'll fit into any container, right? It's got to be somewhere in the middle, right? And it's not even necessarily dead center in the balance of that, right? You don't have to be right in the middle between completely rock solid and being water, right? Some actors are really living in that beautiful discovery phase. They're really living in their watery flexibility. And that's great as long as they have some point of view. And then, of course, the reverse can be true too, where you have strong, opinionated actors, nothing wrong with that, as long as they can really listen and show themselves to be teachable. But I think what Joel is describing as this phenomenon, that I hear about it a lot of times in different ways from artist episodes, from college episodes, and it's one I've really observed myself, hence all of these takeaways about cockiness and confidence, right? Which is that more often, students are following into that watery mold. More often, we're seeing the desire to kind of strip away all personality so that they're not cocky or they're not wrong or they're not cringe. And then it can end up feeling like I'm just left with nothing. So in the desire to not make a step wrong, I'm kind of not stepping forward at all. And then I don't really get to meet the artist. And I'd much rather meet the artist, even if there's something that I go, I disagree with that. Now at least I got something to play with, for at least what Joel's talking about. Argue with me. Okay, that was not too quick, but not our longest either. We've done longer. So we're going to end there with another episode of Mapping the College Audition, produced by Meghan, Cordier, and Kelly Prendergast, with social media work by Jordan Rice. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Write us one of those sweet ratings and reviews. Follow us on Instagram at Mapping the College Audition, and check us out at MTCA.com for help with your individual college process. And if you're seeing me at Pittsburgh Unified this week, don't be shy. Come up and say hi, whether you're an MTCA student or not. I would love to shake your hand. To my young artists out there mapping their journeys, please trust that you are enough for the right program, exactly as you are right now. Now keep striving. We'll catch you next week.